Hello and welcome. We're so excited for you to join us for our next roundtable, How to Get 100 Dog Walking Clients in 6 Months with Michelle Kline. We're so honored to have Michelle join us today and help all of you join us too. As we're approaching the end of the year, this is a great time to start thinking about your goals for 2025 and how you can grow your business. Michelle is the former owner of her own pet care business, which she sold in 2023. And after selling her business, Michelle started DogCo Launch to take what she learned and help other businesses grow too. In January, Michelle will kick off her next Mastermind. So if you're interested in learning more about that, stay tuned to learn more. We're so excited to have Michelle join us today. Thank you so much, Michelle, for joining. Let's kick things off. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. I'm so excited that all of you are joining us today. Really super excited to have Michelle here as well. We're going to go ahead and start kicking things off, but I will expect to have more people joining us as we hop in. I will ask for a couple housekeeping items. If everyone could just keep themselves on mute so we have as less background noise as possible, that would be wonderful. But if you do have questions, what I'll ask you to do is drop them in the chat for Zoom. And then as we're going throughout things today, I'll kind of help Michelle field those questions so we can get them answered for you. And if not, feel free to email us with your questions so that we can reach out if you do have any questions. But super excited to have all of you join us today. Thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us. I know this is one of the most exciting topics for businesses is growing your business. And when I saw get 100 clients in 6 months, I'm sure everyone else also saw that as well. It's just like light bulb moment. I've got to attend this session and learn more. So we're super excited to have you, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us. For all of you who don't know Michelle, she has a wonderful Facebook group that you should all join. I feel like I'm constantly learning new things from there. I also first saw Michelle speak at the NAPS conference in February. I learned a lot there too. So I'm super excited for you all to learn what she has to share today. And with that, Michelle, I will kick things over to you.
Sounds great. Thank you. So I'm really excited to be with all of you guys tonight and to talk a bit about getting more dog walking clients or clients, period, because a lot of what I'll talk about tonight can apply to other niches or other client types. But I'll talk a little bit about my experience to kick us off and why dog walking was my focus. And just to go ahead and cut through any clickbaity concerns on the title, this is an actual challenge I ran in my business to get 100 dog walking clients in 6 months. I ended the challenge at 89 and learned a lot of lessons. So we're actually going to break down a real life example. So I'm excited to get into it. My name is Michelle Kline. I am the owner and founder of DogCo Launch. Simplified, I help pet care companies grow and scale. I love everything about what I do. My experience coming into the industry started with, I opened a pet care business in 2017, and it was full service. Like many of us start, I kind of accidentally came into it. I knew that I loved pets and I knew I wanted something flexible, and my business was born. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is getting traction. I really like it. Started with ICs, and 18 months in, my CPA was like, we're going to go a different direction here. And I said, okay, I don't know any different. So she told me to transition to employees. I did. Then when COVID hit, I had been wrestling with a topic we're actually going to talk about tonight, which is niching your company and why that can be a really good call for you. And I was wrestling with knowing I wanted to niche and knowing that I wanted to shift my operations and my services in a different direction. And when COVID hit, I decided to take the disruption as an opportunity, shift into a daily dog walking and on-demand dog walking model and adventure services. And from there, the company just absolutely exploded, mostly in good ways. We had a lot of volume very quickly, grew to 25 staff and 600 clients in the next 18 months before I sold to new owners in 2023 because I saw a real need in the market for somebody that was helping people grow their business in really specific ways. So for tonight, that may be dog walking for you. It may be cat care only. It may be you want to go pet sitting only, whatever it may be. We're going to talk about the power of niching your company, both from an operational standpoint and also a marketing standpoint. There's a lot of power in being known as the person for something in your community. So I'll make my case for that. And then I'm going to walk through whatever service line you're growing. I think some of the marketing will apply that we're talking about tonight. Built around the case study of if you wanted to get 100 clients in 6 months, how I personally approached it, and a framework that you can take and do today if you would like to. And I'll also talk a little bit about the specific, excuse me, marketing channels I picked, knowing there are a lot of different ways we can market, but we want to be strategic about our energy. So we have a lot to cover tonight, but I will do my best to have us out of here at, well, I will have us out of here at 7, but we'll get through it. We'll keep going. Okay, so why the case for niching? If you do already follow me in any capacity, I am a big understudy of Alex Hermosi and his wife Layla. They get the 2 books that have prominent position up here, $100 million offers and $100 million leads. And he does a lot of education on business. And he informed a lot of the thoughts that I had in the way that I grew my business. And this specific statement always stood out to me. So when we're thinking about niching, oftentimes it feels smart to try and add on more and more and more. There is so much opportunity in the pet care industry. I actually think we are living in such an exciting season of it because there's a lot you can do, and there's a lot of consumer spending around pet care, especially post-COVID. And it's really been building up over, a while, but the last decade especially. So there's this temptation to take a look and almost get this shiny object syndrome of like, ooh, I could add that and I could add that, and that would make sense for my client base. And I felt that a lot too. However, I also think this principle is wildly accurate, which is adding on more products and services always makes sense on paper because you have this client base, they have shared interests, you could overlap and cross-sell and, all the stuff we're tempted to do. The problem is most businesses are not limited by their economics, they are limited by their execution. And I don't think that is a critical commentary on the role of a business owner, though I know I personally can be subject to shiny object syndrome where I want to do all the things. I think instead that is a commentary on the capacity of doing one thing really, really well versus lots of little things less well. The problem also is when you add a ton of different service lines or a ton of different revenue streams, you start to set up inside your business. What can happen is a pretty complicated operational model. So let me share a bit of my experience with that. So prior to COVID, I had 10 staff. I was doing 200,000 in revenue, full service pet care. And when I tell you I would do anything, I would do anything like full service sleepover. If you wanted the overnights, if you wanted us to walk your dog down the aisle at your wedding, if you wanted to just call me and talk to me about your dog on the phone, whatever it is, I was your girl. And while that might not sound too bad, it was really stressful, mostly because my business had very little revenue consistency. I was working a lot, and this was partially because I had not set up my labor margins very well. But there was so much operational complexity in the business, I was struggling to adequately pay myself. Now, this does not mean that a full service pet care business is not scalable by any means. I work with a lot of full service pet care businesses that do a variety of services, but they have more operational complexity that they do have to account for. So we want to keep that in mind. I don't know if there's a question coming up. Okay, so nothing, if you run full service pet care, this is not intended to try and talk you out of it. It's intended to present the power of niching that you may want to take advantage of one day. or may even want to take a look at, do I want to centralize one service as my primary? There are a lot of different directions we could go. So here was the problem I was starting to realize in my business. I am really good at marketing, and that's not necessarily a flex. I just like it a lot. I'm kind of a nerd about it. And so I was getting a lot of clients, but I didn't feel like I was going anywhere. I kept hitting this ceiling and couldn't figure out what it was. And I came to realize it was my business model. So the first thing I came to realize was I was running basically two separate businesses inside of one business. I had my pet care revenue line and I had my dog walking line. I was a bit floored to realize that I had about 5% overlap between these two client types as far as who used both service, telling me that I actually had pretty isolated sides of my business. I did a time assessment and realized that 80% of my administrative time was mapping out the details and needs of individual pet sits. I found that a fully team-based model where you can do a blind introduction and anybody can work with any client, which gets more and more important the bigger your team gets, was very difficult with pet sitting. People were much more particular about who came into their home. And my operational model was very segmented. I tended to have staff that wanted to dog walk, or I had staff that wanted to pet sit. And it was getting harder and harder to find staff that would overlap neatly, in part because that meant they were working 16-hour days. I found someone may do that for you once. They probably will not do that for you on a recurring basis. And we probably shouldn't put them in the position where they need to long term. Second light bulb moment, I realized that if I was going to grow this business and continue growing, getting to the next revenue level, I needed a business that was built around systems and operations, not around individual people. And that does not mean that I did not really like my staff or really care about my staff. But what it meant was I was treating them like I'm growing a client list for you, or you have this particular skill, so I'm going to optimize for that. And then, as all people do, at some point with every job, they left. And then I was left with really big holes inside my business. And that was really difficult. I kept having to start over in some ways. Number two, I needed to develop my systems to make my business more efficient. I just needed more control over some of the costs that were coming in. This led me to dog walking as my particular niche. Again, this is not a case for you. However, if anybody is interested in growing dog walking as a revenue line, here is why I am particularly partial. The recurring revenue, I think we all get that. It's just nice to have somebody on a 5-day a week template for an ongoing basis. More predictable metrics. So as your business is continuing to grow, getting clear data on what somebody will spend with you on average is, excuse me, really helpful. That allows us to make more predictive decisions on how many clients do I actually need? How many people should I actually hire for? With pet sitting, you guys get this. People tend to use us more sporadically. It kind of depends on how much free money they have to want to travel. Versus dog walking, it tends to be a bit more around their work or lifestyle needs, which are more predictable. I personally found it easier to hire for. You guys get it. And if anybody's interested, I do believe this is just to maybe speak to the elephant in the room, because this comes up a lot. I work with a lot of companies operating very successfully in this current economic environment doing dog walking only. I promise it works. We just have to know how to market for it. Which leads me to talking about brand. So, what is a brand? And I know that may sound like an oversimplified question, or maybe a silly question. I have found having a clear definition for it is helpful. So your brand is a collection of associations that others have about you. It's not just a logo, it's actually something a lot more pliable and living almost, where it's something that changes and moves. I think sometimes we tend to think of a brand as in one specific graphic or a logo that we invested in. And that is part of it. That's people's visual association of your brand. But your brand actually contains a lot more as part of it. So, okay, I have to give a caveat. If this is anybody's brand that I'm about to show, well, one, I'm about to compliment you on the next screen. So, yay, go you. But two, I'm going to talk about brand association. There is no good or bad when it comes to, well, I guess you could have a brand that you don't like, but that's not what I'm talking about. This is not to criticize anybody's logo. Maybe I'll just put it that way, long-winded. So when you look at the brands on this screen, it is very clear who these people are and what they do. The wag, we in the top left corner, we have a dog holding a leash, expectantly looking forward. This dog's ready to go on a walk. The wag dog walking makes it even more clear. Walking dogs with a dog on a leash, very clear. Koa dog walking, morning dog walking, the canine connection dog walking. There is no brand confusion. These people have put together an outward facing brand that if somebody's looking for a dog walker, they're probably going to be pretty connected to this brand. Immediately, they're going to say, oh, they solved my problem. They do what I am looking for. That is a positive brand association that we want to have, a brand that is very clear on who we want to be. Now, I'm going to show you some brands that are less clear on dog walking. That does not mean that they are a poor brand. It just means that if they are trying to optimize for a dog walking client base, we may have to layer in some other brand associations to do that as effectively as the brands we were just looking at. So on the left, and I actually really like this logo. I like all these logos actually, but I think there's an argument to be made. They don't explicitly show what the brand does. So Happy Paws, Your Pet, Our Care. I would say that probably suggests more of a pet sitting model, just based off my first impressions of it. Pet Care One, I would say that may even suggest a little bit of like a healthcare model for some reason. That like one, I tend to see more associated with more like medical branding. I would wonder if this was like insurance or something like that. Happy and Fed Pet Sitting, they're going to get really good traction on pet sitting. This is a very clear brand. They're probably going to optimize for morning and evening feedings. And then finally, Paws in Progress, discover the potential in your paws. I would make the association based off this branding that they're probably a training facility or they're focusing more on dog behavior rather than training and pet sitting. Now, this may be what these brands want to optimize for. That, we're all making different choices on what direction we want to go in the market. But if you are looking to niche into a very specific service or grow a very specific service line, it's really important to think about the way people associate you and your brand in the community. At a minimum, we do not want our brand causing confusion. Ideally, though, it's working for us. It's actually attracting the people that we want. But at a minimum, we want to make sure it's not turning them away. So if you are looking to grow your dog walking client base and your business name is blank pet sitting, we may want to take a look at, is there a tweak to your brand we could make to be a bit more dog walking inclusive at a minimum? Things like that help bring it. It will keep as many people from assuming that's not a service that you offer. I want to encourage you, do not underestimate the power of being known for something in a space. This story makes me laugh. I actually shared this at NAPS. Nicole was mentioning that I had spoken there. So if anybody was here, you've already heard this, or there, you've already heard this story. But I realized this had happened in my community for dog walking when I was out walking my own personal dog. And this guy drove up in a truck next to me. It kind of freaked me out, to be honest. And he rolled down the window and he said, "You're the dog walking lady." And I was like, "Yep, I guess I am." So that is the type of association that we want, is maybe not necessarily the personal brand so much, but we want to be known as the thing. We are the company for X. If you are layering in components of who you are as the owner, we want you known as the person for blank in your community. So when you are thinking about the intersection of niching and your brand, I would encourage you, it's okay to be incredibly specific about who you are and what you're looking to do. People are very drawn to that kind of clarity. It's actually going to make converting clients a lot easier and finding them. So I am going to segue, unless have we had any questions come up, Nicole? Okay. Okay. Then I am going to, and also if you guys have questions as I go, that's more of my preferred teaching style. So I'm more than happy to pause because I am going to move away from niching and branding now, unless somebody has a specific question for it. Okay. So as you are thinking through who are you to the community, who do you want to be, if you are going to niche, once you have done that, maybe we want to focus on a high growth goal for that specific client type. One thing I encourage people, if you are looking to niche, we want to have a pretty clear pathway for client acquisition for you. By that, I mean, it's going to be real tempting when you first niche to kind of ease off the gas because you're like, oh yeah, I did the thing. I know who I am now. These people will come. And then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, maybe I just made some shifts that are very big and very scary. We got to get a pipeline of new clients coming in. So this is a personal challenge I set for my company pretty soon after niching into a dog walking model within a year, where I really wanted to build my brand association with dog walking. I did a rebrand through lockdown. I went into a dog walking and adventure services only model and decided, okay, I need to get some real traction and momentum behind this new brand and behind the community seeing us as the company for dog walking. What better way to do that than a little personal challenge? So I made the goal of getting 100 new clients 100 new dog walking clients specifically in 6 months. I am happy to report I got 89. I do believe if I were doing this goal over again with what I know now and what I'll share tonight, I would easily hit 100. So let's talk a little bit about why this target. 100 is an aggressive number. It was aggressive, especially for me at the time. But I picked an aggressive target because I wanted to push myself to think bigger. It may not feel like it on a given day, but you probably have 5 to 10 people in your personal network that if you really needed to hustle some new clients, you could figure out how to get them into your business. These might be friends that you haven't wanted to make a direct pitch to. This might be a client that you know has the hookup with like their neighbors that really need a dog walker. If you had to find 5 to 10 clients tonight, you could do it if you had to. 100, you got to have some strategy behind it. That's not a number we can kind of just pull arbitrarily out of our network. So I knew this would force me to think bigger. Number 2, this is probably an ego thing. I do not like hitting my targets, especially if I have told other people about them. I really like to come through and be like, look what I did. So I knew if I set one and told people about it, it would kind of motivate me to be like, nope, you said you were going to do it. So number 1, if you are going to set an aggressive goal for your company, we have to break it down into metrics to know exactly what we are trying to hit and what we are trying to do. I am a big fan of knowing exactly what you are aiming for and the different levers that you need to measure to know if you're headed in the right direction or not. When we're dialed in on the metrics, that gives us the chance to course correct before we get to the end of 6 months and we're like, dang it, I didn't know if I was going to make it or not, but I'm disappointed now. If we can break it down into what do I have to hit a week to hit that, we know really quickly whether or not we're on track. So breaking down 100 clients in 6 months, that essentially equals 4 clients a week. 425. This is a doable number. I'm sure everybody here has had a week where you have onboarded 4 clients. We just need to figure out how to do that repeatedly, but it can be done. That is a very doable number. And here's the really cool thing of when you set really aggressive metrics, it actually kind of forces this momentum and growth and change if you track it regularly. So you can see here, this was 1 year after I did this challenge. You'll see a lot of red because I was aiming for some really aggressive targets. However, the line I want you to look at is the line where I was tracking weekly meet and greets. Coming off of this challenge, I was like, you know what? I think we can set the bar higher. I think we proved to ourselves this is a viable thing we can keep doing. So I made my new goal 12 meet and greets a week. And you can see down there, even though I only hit it once, my weekly average on meet and greets was much higher than 4. So when we push ourselves on these metrics and we actually track them, it gives us this momentum to continue to reach higher and higher. All right, warning, my warning slide. Is your business ready for growth? I'm a huge fan of building as you go. And also, as you guys all know, this is a delicate business model. It's very easy to get over leveraged on staff, or well, I guess over leveraged too, but it's very easy to get short staffed very quickly. If you have like 2 extra clients come in, it's like, whoa. So if you haven't developed out your operations, specifically a hiring pipeline, where you can kind of crank it and like get new people in as your client lead flow starts coming in, just tread. I would suggest it's probably worth getting some of those systems set up in place before you really start cranking the marketing. Because I found that actually was one of the most difficult pieces in scaling my company. Once you figure out your client lead flow, that tends to build on itself. Like people start telling their people who tell their people. The staffing side tends to be much more delicate. So we want to make sure we have some systems there. It's definitely a chicken and an egg. Should I focus on growth or should I focus on structuring my business, and which one first? So I saw that pop up in the chat. Amy, I was not on Pet Pocketbook. I was on a different software. So I'm sorry, I'm not able to speak to that. I didn't know about it at the time though. So that could have been different. We could have had an alternate reality here. But I would defer to Nicole. Yeah, for sure. So chicken and egg, maximizing company for growth. This led to a lot of amazing things. It also led to a lot of chaos because I chose growth over structure. So I had to step back from some of the growth. At the end of the 6-month challenge, I was like, oh, I've flown too close to the sun. I'm going to have to build some systems to support this growth if I want to keep going. So don't be afraid to take a step back to lay the foundation. The foundation supports the growth as you go. This is not really an operational talk. I just feel the need to give my warning. So here's one that I did at the end of last year. I'll stay on the screen for a second while I cough and mute myself. So if you want to get a screenshot, you are welcome to go back and take a look at that. This is a lot of operational scaling advice for scaling. I apologize. I know I have coughed directly into the microphone. All right, final warning. I encourage you, do not neglect client retention and making sure your current clients, you focus on keeping their spend high in the pursuit of new clients. This is going to be very tempting to focus overtly on new client lead flow. This is one of the biggest lessons that I learned. On looking at how can I focus too heavily on getting new clients. I should have been more focused on optimizing the clients that I had gotten in addition to new clients. So my final warning for you. Okay, let's talk about how to get 100 clients. So, setting the stage for success, we are going to want to put some strategy into how you guys are moving through a challenge like this. I really love this quote. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Because in order to get where you are now to 100 new clients, like I was talking about before, that takes strategy. We want to make sure, like, you could probably spend 6 months hustling 100 clients for sure. Like, you could go door to door 12 hours a day for 6 months, and you could probably get 100 new people into your business. And you may want to quit your business at the end of that because that's a lot of door to door. We want to figure out good strategy to go through something like this. So I talked about getting really clear on the metrics. I set my target 17 per month, and I started with how am I going to track it? There's a quote that I really agree with. What gets measured is what matters. So we want to make sure we are tracking our progress through something like this. For me, I wanted something both visual and digital so that I could take it with me. I know this sounds oversimplified, y'all, but one of the best strategies you can do for your own growth is to create a very large physical reminder of where you are. I tell companies that I work with, set a challenge amount, like how many new clients, how many total dog walks, whatever it is, and put up a giant poster board that you have to look at every day. That's a reminder of how far you have gotten. Because here's the thing, when you have to look at that every day, if you're not there yet, it's going to start to kind of piss you off a little bit. You're going to be like, come on, like, I can do this. It's not that hard. I can do this. Let's go do this. At least that's how it works for me. It's also very motivating to check off as you go and to feel like you're accomplishing something. I know it sounds silly, but psychologically, it's incredibly motivating. So I did a giant poster board, 100 slots, and I set it right behind my computer. So every day, if I was procrastinating, as we all do, I would just look at this and I'd start to stew and I'd be like, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go figure it out. So optimize your frustration to work for you. All right, here's where we start to sharpen the axe. I got to know my community very deeply. If you are running a challenge like this or any type of large growth initiative, we want to root that strategy in your local area. Your local area, one, has a wealth of knowledge that you can access, and also a marketing strategy contextualized to a very specific area and group of people is very powerful. The more specific, the higher the conversion. So for me, here's information that I researched that I then utilized to form a strategic marketing plan that I was going to do to hit 100 clients. I looked on online statistics on demographic, average income, national pet owner statistics, tried to really get clear on what is the opportunity in this area per age group, per zip code, really broke it down. Industries, what's growing in my city? What are we known for? What do people move to your city to do? And who moves to your city? That's a phenomenal target for a dog walking company. People who relocate tend to not have the social infrastructure yet to like have a neighbor they can call to let their dog out or to have a friend that can pop by the house. They're a really good target for a dog walking client. So who's moving to your town for what? What are the popular Facebook groups? Like, where are people hanging out? What are they doing? I went and just talked to people at bars, breweries, dog parks, and just got to know them, asked a lot about pet parenting and what they looked for in a service. I know it sounds weird. We are pet people. We do this because we like animals, but taking the time to talk to other people is also very helpful. I picked the brain of other people in the industry who were not competitors, but in like kind of tangential fields. I read every single compliment we had ever received from a client, trying to figure out who really jived with our services. And then I reached out to trusted clients to get more information and to have conversations. So that I really did almost like individual focus groups of Give me your feedback. Like, what's really helpful about what we do? And from there, I picked a single client avatar to focus on based off of my research, which was the young professional, ideally working in a medical capacity. This is an area I spend a lot of time with the companies that I work with because it is very tempting in your marketing to see all pet parents as your target. And here's the thing, it is not that all pet parents, like, if somebody has a dog and they need your service, yes, you're going to take them into the business. However, if your marketing is incredibly broad, remember earlier we were talking about the power of niching and branding? If your marketing is incredibly broad, it doesn't usually really resonate with anyone because you're trying to talk to everybody at one time. When we get really specific in our messaging, that's when we really start to resonate with people and they start to really understand the value of what we do because it's really built for them. So for me, with the demographic I chose, I got very specific about learning more about them. Where were they working? How many of them were there? Where did they spend their time? What did they consider cool? Do not underestimate social status or pressure. Those are very powerful motivators in a purchasing decision. And then above all else, I took a look at what were their pet parenting pain points. I came across some really interesting stuff specifically, and this was a really big moment for me. When I chose to isolate the age group of the young professional and the medical population in my city, that was the overlap of that was a pool of 20,000 people. We know, or I knew from my research, that 66% of millennials own a pet. That led me to know confidently that there was about 12,000 people in my local area that would be a fit for my service that I was trying to speak to in my area. And I don't know about you guys, but I was like, do I really want a 12,000 client dog walking business? I do not. I'd be happy with one or two. So for me, that was enough meat on the bone to be like, okay, that's who I'm speaking to. So once I felt that I really understood my client avatar, I took stock in my business, just took a look at, am I ranking compared to what, like, am I meeting what they care about? These are a few talking points on the young professional. Feel free to grab a screenshot. These tend to be like, so the young professional tends to be a pretty common dog walking avatar with companies that I work with. It is an age group and a demographic that is more likely to spend on in-home services than this kind of interesting, just a data point for y'all. There's this interesting kind of like inverse bell curve that happens with consumer spending where there's a lot of or more openness to spend on like a luxury in-home service when you are a professional before you have children, and then as you are aging out of your children being at home and you're headed more and more to the end of your career. Those two like ends of the career spectrum tend to be more likely as a consumer to spend on in-home services. Families and kind of in middle career, if they have young children especially, it's just less of a priority. Not that their animals are less of a priority, but just that kind of like excess cash flow that they would allocate into a service more often. And it's more likely that maybe a parent is staying at home or they have a nanny. They just have more kind of daytime infrastructure. So if the young professional is a client type for you that you are pursuing, here are a couple key talking points just to give you something tactical. Education. Oftentimes I was running into people who this was their first like adult dog. So there's a lot of anxiety, which leads to our second one. I just want to get this right. I want to do a good job. Responsibility being number 3. This pet is now their roommate, their child, and their best friend. There's a lot of roles going on with this new animal. especially if it's their first adult dog. Maybe they're living in their first like solo apartment in a brand new city. That's going to be more common with the young professional type. And then support. So they are the demographic that is most likely to relocate for professional opportunity. They are also the age group that is most likely to own dogs. So that kind of gives us some segments we can target. Few priorities that I found with this client type: convenience. So software. They are going to be very impressed that you use the software. They're going to be very motivated by that. Sometimes I talk with companies and they are a little bit nervous to promote as like app-based or software-based because they are afraid that consumers will associate them with Rover and Wag. I would encourage you, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Rover and Wag are very well known. And obviously, you know, we do things differently as professional pet sitters. However, that's not a bad thing. Like, one of the reasons they are so popular is because they are app-based and software-based and very convenient. So those are actually positive. Speaking of brand associations, positive brand associations people have with those two platforms. Number two, social proof. The young professional is going to care more about, what are my friends doing? Do they use this? Are the vibes good? And then vibe, so brand, essentially. Do I want to be associated with them? Quick list of desires I'll kind of pop through. Happiness, socialization, ease, social status, affirmation, peace of mind, community. These are going to be big priorities, talking points, like kind of more of that like driven desire that they will have relative to their animals and the businesses that they work with. And then finally, if this is a client type you're marketing to, day-to-day pain points: hard to get home at lunch, hate having to like compromise both social time and dog time. Dog has high energy needs, and also concerns about like the dog's emotional well-being. That tends to be a pretty big thing. Okay, so we've made our plan. We've researched the heck out of it. We've consolidated information to pick a target avatar that we now know pretty well. Let's talk about how to go get them. So based off all the research I did, I picked 3 marketing channels that I used to reach my target clients to get those 89 new clients in. I chose to focus on my Google presence, talk about how I did that, a really robust referral strategy, and then marketing on Instagram. All right, so, sorry, I'm trying to get, my screen froze and you guys are blocking the Google, so I'm gonna have to go off memory for this one. So with Google, focused on improving my Google business listing. So making sure it was active, making sure the vibes were in alignment with my current client. Focused on some SEO strategy. I focused on blogging a bit to just help make sure my site was ranking well. Focused on getting more Google reviews. That was going to add to that social proof. I had this whole mental thing about not asking my clients direct. Here we go. I can move you guys now. Let's see. Okay, that was close. Yeah, that was close. I had this whole thing with Google reviews where I was like, it's this like badge of honor not to directly ask people for them. If you are there, I understand, because I really wanted those to come without me having to ask. It felt very humbling to have to ask. You need to ask. And I'm just going to let you know, I had like 12 Google reviews before I started asking. And then when I sold the company, I had 192. And we did that in like 2 years. Asking your clients, they want to help you. They just don't think about going out of their way to do that. We need to ask, we need to give them the link. I'll talk a bit about that. But so Google, one reason I focus so heavily on Google is because if your target client avatar moves around a lot, they're probably going to Google, they're popping in dog walker if they really need one, and they're going to click whoever comes up highest, or at least in the top couple of sections. So that ranking is a big deal. For referrals, both current clients and partnerships, I'll talk a little bit about some partnerships I set up that were really helpful. Social proof is almost like a hack to help you get more brand association, and also more visibility very quickly. So, making a list of other brands in your area that don't have anything to do with pet care, even, is a really, and then like wooing those relationships, making sure you invest a good bit in them, is a really phenomenal way to get positive brand association and more traction and therefore more clients. So we'll talk a bit about that. Asking your clients for referrals. I know that may sound rote, that may be something that you already are doing, but if not, having a regular structure where you ask them, hey, who do you know? You connect with them on, can I put up, so for example, medical. If you have medical clients, asking if they can put flyers in their staff room for you, it's not a huge ask, and the return on that can be very, very high. So things like that to kind of optimize our current clients when the ask is appropriate. And then finally, Instagram. Instagram is a very popular platform for my target avatar. It's also a very like brand and aesthetic driven platform, which I knew mattered a lot to my target avatar based off all the research that I had done. I personally find Instagram to be the best platform for brand positioning, and Facebook to be the best platform for like community building. So that tends to be how I differentiate between the two with me personally. Okay, so we are going to want to incorporate all of our research into these channels so that all of these tactics that we pick are really informed by the opportunities in our local community and the research that we did on who we are looking to reach. What you try will not work the first time. I'm just going to go ahead and give you like a marketing 101 that a lot of people fight me on. It won't. Even though we've done all this work, even though we have a really good guess, we're going to have to iterate. If you try something one time, what we're going to want to do is take the lessons, come back, reformulate, go again. And I know that can feel really discouraging, especially if marketing is not your cup of tea. I really do get it. I do think this is part of how we get better, though, and how we grow. So that's my encouragement, tiny challenge. If it doesn't work, let's iterate before we throw the idea out. Stay centered on what you discovered and the pain points that you're speaking to with people. There's a little quote that I really like: become obsessive with solving the pain. It makes it really hard for your marketing to stray too far from something that's going to be effective if you stay very focused on serving a specific group of people and solving a pain point for them. All right, here's just some tactical advice. So Google, number one, ranking. You're going to want to get in the top 3. If you're not in the top 3 and you do not see an immediate or quick pathway to get there, I do recommend taking a look at running Google Ads. Now, there can be diminishing returns on that. If you maybe have never done that before, that may feel overwhelming. I'm not saying just dump a ton of money into it. That's not an effective spend in my mind. But if there's a course you can take, somebody in your network that knows how to do that, and you are not in the top 3, that is something I would recommend you explore. We're going to want to take a look at your Google experience. So one thing I encourage you to do is to open an incognito tab on your computer and search dog walker your area. An incognito tab. So basically, Google learns a lot about you whenever you go to Chrome or Safari, whoever you use. And they learn to essentially show you what you want to see. And as a non-business owner, that's awesome because it's like, how did they know I love going to this website? However, what that's going to do if you Google your own business is give this false sense of accomplishment that you are ranking number 1 because they know you and that website are associated. And as good as that feels, it may not be true. So when we do an incognito search, it wipes all that Google data out and just gives you a pure look at your status in Google without any of those like history things affecting it. So do an incognito search on dog walker, your area, pet sitter, your area, whatever you're looking to rank for, and take a look at the way your page looks before you click on it and try to have a really critical eye. Like, oh, what does my tagline read under like the web page that's coming up? What does the page title read? Is there anything funky or weird in there? Because I just thought, oh, I'll change that later. We want to get a sense of like, okay, if I were looking at this as a total stranger, what am I getting from that? Google My Business, we want to make sure it's active, it's current. One of the biggest things I see companies doing that I encourage them not to do is they are setting their office hours for their Google business listing instead of their open hours of availability. Now, if you're trying to attract dog walking clients and you only want to be out in the field walking 9 to 4, it's totally fine to just put 9 to 4. But if you're trying to market like a full service pet care business and you show that you're closed on Saturday and Sunday, at which you are in your office maybe, but your pet sitters aren't. They're out providing services, and that's what clients are looking for. So we want to make sure your Google My Business is set up to really speak to the priorities of the consumer and to help show them we're the right pick. Click on me. We're trying to win that click. And then finally, reviews. And these are all tactics that I was doing to get, the challenge. You guys get it. Reviews, ask regularly, make it easy. Couple tips I recommend here. Make sure you denote somewhere in the client profile if they've given you a review or not. So that way, when they do, you kind of know to back off that ask. Otherwise, I recommend that you have a spreadsheet with the last time you reached out that you are just working through, and you have a regular time that you do this. And so a lot of people I work with will ask one time and then they'll ease off of it, because if they don't get it immediately, they're like, ooh, maybe they didn't want to, or maybe I'm going to annoy them. I would keep reaching out once a month-ish. Like, I wouldn't do it more than that, but a regular ask is okay. Most people will have looked at your message, said, yes, I'll do that later. And then because we all have squirrel brain, they forgot. And that truly is the extent of the story. So it's actually helpful if you send it again. You're going to want to make sure that the images in your Google business kind of give the vibe you want. I intentionally worked with, I know this sounds like very bougie, but I'm very into photography. So I worked with a photographer that only did more like natural film style photography, because I was like, I just really like kind of the edge and the sunlight to it. And so I made sure all my website photography and my Google business listing kind of had a very similar aesthetic and vibe. It connected really well with my target clients. They cared about stuff like that. Moving on to referrals. So who should you be associated with? What referral funnels are you going to get the most benefit from? Who wants to be associated with you? Thinking through the broader picture. This is a partnership we did during this challenge. This is an account in Winston-Salem, which is where I live, called The Go-To Winston-Salem, where they just highlight the cool stuff going on around town. Their following is definitely targeting the young professional. And so we reached out to ask if we could pay them to do a collaboration. They would work with businesses and act as a marketing funnel for them. So we did a massive giveaway for an 11 dog walking package. They did a week-long promotion. Now, what's really cool, so only one person won, but if you take a look at the comments, 698 people entered. What is really cool about that, and this was such a missed opportunity at my point because I didn't really understand marketing the way that I do now. If I were doing this over, every single entry would have received a personal follow-up message from the business with an offer for a free walk. I'm so sorry you didn't win. We could only have one. We'll still give you a free walk if you want to come try our service. And I would have offered that to 700 people. And I guarantee you, I would have hit 100 clients. Such a missed opportunity. These are the things I think about at 2 a.m. Like, man, just one little tweak to my strategy. Okay, so quick note on community. We need to actually form a relationship with these partners. We want to make sure we're bringing value. If someone was trying to get on your radar, we want to think through like what brings value to them, not just coming in with our own ask. We know that conceptually, but sometimes we get a little flustered and tongue-tied. So we want to make sure we prioritize who we're talking to. Okay, I already kind of touched on client referrals and optimizing your client list. I will talk through this example though. So this is Maple. Maple is a whole mood. She had some of the most personality I'd ever met in a golden retriever. And her owner was pretty well known around town as she was like a hairstylist, but she had this like whole cool account. So one week we did a Maple Monday mood drop where we just put the weirdest pictures we had of Maple on our Instagram, tagged the owner and said, well, you see the caption, felt so wrong to keep this just to ourselves. A photo dump of Maple. Her owner reshared this to her personal social, as people do when you highlight things that they care about. And we got a ton of new follows from it because she shared it to her personal network. So we want to think through ways that we can get connected to our clients' personal networks, because in that way is pretty much an endorsement of our service. She didn't say like, oh, you should go sign up for X company for dog walking. But what she did do was reshare an Instagram post where we had uploaded 10 pictures of Maple. We clearly know Maple and she is Maple's mom. So the association, very good. Final quick notes on Instagram. And then Nicole, is it okay if I share a couple slides on the mastermind? Sorry,
Yeah,
I should have asked
absolutely.
before.
Please do. No, that's
Okay.
perfect.
So Instagram consistency, that really is the name of the game with any type of social media platform. A company I work with who I adore sent me their Instagram, a screenshot of their Instagram the other day, and they were like, tear it apart. I can take it. I want to know how I can make it better. And I was like, well, here are some suggestions to your bio, but you haven't posted anything. It really just got to start posting. I have nothing to tear apart. We just got to get out there and start posting and stay consistent. Instagram's a great place to have a vibe. I would pick the vibe you're going for and just make it consistent. So I was going for like approachable edge, not your average dog walker vibe, easygoing but friendly. So just picking the angle that you want. So the result, tidying up that challenge, was 89 new dog walking clients in 6 months. That year, we added $150,000 in dog walking specific revenue, which was pretty scary without having a solid hiring pipeline. So it was very fun, but I do recommend having some practices in place. Couple key takeaways for you, and then I'd love to share really quick about something that I do that's coming up. Key takeaways for you: niching and creating a clear brand for a specific service makes it easier to grow. And then number 2, you do not have to do every marketing channel out there known to man to grow. You can pick 2 or 3 as long as they strategically align with your core client and do them well and have massive amounts of success, because you get to do fewer things really well that actually align with your people. And I would take that any day over just this like broad strategy where you're trying a million different things. And I'm going to talk really quick about my mastermind, but if anybody has questions, I would love to also come back to those. So I built a mastermind when I started DogCo because I wanted to give companies a place to tackle a year of scale, similar to what I went through with my company. A year of scale can be really scary. It can be really fun. It's great to grow in revenue and grow in team size. And also it oftentimes requires working really hard and trying new things, and also like having to undo systems that don't serve you anymore. So twice a year, I open up to take 20 companies into a group at a time with no competitors so that we can focus on scaling your company together. I'm pretty proud of these stats, I'm not going to lie. So I ran this data this week. And the average company in the mastermind adds an average of $46,000 a year through the mastermind, 18% adding $120,000 through the year or more. Owner owner pay through the mastermind increased by 14% on average, and owner time off increases by 2 weeks a year, which is pretty cool. There are a lot of different things it includes. We focus on growing a year together, so it's hard to simplify that, but we work very closely with each other and me directly with the companies. And we are launching in January. So if that is of interest, I'd love for you to reach out to me. We can explore if it's a right fit. And even if it's not, I'll send you some resources because I want you guys to grow and succeed. And I am just thankful for your time tonight. So if anybody has questions, I would love to answer them. And if not, that's also fine.
I also wanted to add in, we'll also be sending it out an email for all of you with some follow-up information about Michelle's mastermind. And if you do have any questions from anything we send to you or from today, definitely reach out and we'll forward those along to Michelle.
Thank you.
Michelle, I do have a question about your mastermind. Can you speak to maybe like the top, maybe 2 or 3 things that you would focus on during that mastermind with anyone who does want to sign up with you?
Yeah. So what I focus on initially with companies are it's kind of a threefold approach. So one, how are we tracking your growth this year? I know that sounds simplistic, but we want to set up a really clear system to know the internal metrics in your business. Number two, we're going to identify the key marketing opportunities in your specific market and build out that strategy together so you can be really strategic with your growth for the year. And then number three, we're going to start by dismantling or identifying and then dismantling any like core operational bottlenecks inside of your business that are actually stunting your growth. I have found that those can be pretty invisible bottlenecks. But as an example, if you're the only person in your company that can do a meet and greet for a client, what that means is anytime you take time off, anytime you get sick, anytime you personally get into the field, the byproduct of that is your company stops accepting new clients, and then you'll see a trickle-down effect down the road of stunting your growth. That's really an operational problem. We haven't taught or trained other people to do that. So we're going to focus on really growing your business to be able to grow with your operations. I did get a direct message question here. How do you keep your employees from taking your clients? So, Michael, good question. A couple of thoughts I have on that. Number one, I think running a fully team-based model is very good for a business. And by that I mean any employee can work with any client without needing to be cross-trained. I know that makes some companies a little nervous. We do it with systems in place. We're not just sending people in with no structure and no support. But when we run that model, one of the reasons I like it is that turnover does not affect our client base because they have not formed overly reliant overly reliant relationships with like their walker, because that doesn't exist. We send whoever it fits with that day. And because of the way we have trained and the way we have put people in place, you're going to have the same amazing, safe experience. And the relationship you have is with the brand, not with the individual. So that's one piece. I would say the second is really focusing on building a culture of people who feel like they're building the business together and want to be part of it. And like they work with you because they're drawn to the mission and vision that you have versus this kind of like jealousy of like, oh, I wish I could go do that. Or, maybe I will go do that and I'll take people. So I would say it's a twofold approach, both systems and also culture. But great question.
Anyone else have any questions for Michelle?
Hi, my name is Amy. I have a question,
Mhm.
and hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm driving in the mountains. Um, my question is, I live in an area that has working professionals. That's my target base, but they're mostly gig workers. So my clients' schedules change a lot, and most of them request one-on-one dog walking.
Mhm.
So I'm finding it difficult because one, I have a lot of cancellations and reschedules like last minute because let's say they're therapists or they're actors or something like that, and they keep changing their schedule. So it causes a lot of administrative chaos because we're last minute
Mhm.
needing to scramble. So how do you combat that? And what did you do for your business in terms of, was it mostly one-on-one dog walking? Was it mostly pack walks? That's my
Mhm.
question.
Yeah, great question. So I did a one-to-one model. We did not do any pack walk services. I did not feel that I personally had the like operational expertise I would need to implement that in like a scalable way. And other people do. It's not that it can't be done. I just didn't feel I personally had that skill set. So I focused on one-to-one. So okay, this is where I would start, but I would test and iterate this because I doubt it would work on the first try. But this is where I'd start. So my company grew very, very quickly through the pandemic when we pivoted to dog walking because we did two things that I think set us up really well. We aligned with the medical community, and our marketing angle was we will be your stability and a stabilizing force for your dog while you personally deal with very unstable circumstances. I had a better pitch for it than that. Like it was tighter, but that was the value add is like, we'll be the stability amidst a complete lack of stability in the world for you right now. Your dog will be well exercised, well loved, like anchored to their schedule and their routine. And we will make sure they do not feel the effects of what is happening in your life right now so that you can focus where you need to be. And we will focus on your dog as we need to be. That went really, really, really well. And so, like, my follow up question to you is going to be what, what type of gig economy? Like, is it restaurant servers or is it like therapists, like, maybe more professionalized industries?
Yeah,
And
I live
mhm.
in, oh yeah, I don't know if that was a rhetorical question, but
No, no, no.
I live in LA, so actors, actresses, singers, models, therapists, definitely a lot of freelancers, and so their schedule changes often, which is
Hmm.
okay. The thing that is chaotic is the last minute cancellations and changes and requests, and um, I'm grateful I do have a team personally that does kind of like the cross checking. Everyone can walk anyone, but it's chaos on the back end and it does not provide consistent revenue. And I think in
Hmm.
your model, it's a little bit different because usually nurses have set schedules. Maybe their days change, but their hours are pretty much the same. This is like the Wild West in LA. So I'm just trying to like figure out what is actually going to work.
Yeah. So our so a couple thoughts there. Our hours and the staffing was not consistent, but I see your point. I do think it is a different because we have people who are flipping from days to nights all the time, but there was definitely more inherent stability. Where my mind went with your model, I'm seeing more and more companies experimenting with more of like a concierge style model where they're on for a like a set price point with clients on a monthly basis, but they manage a significant amount of the like coordination of the animal, whether it's with their walking services or scheduling pet sitting, whether or not they do it, scheduling vet visits, taking them to the groomer. If I were working with your client type, I probably would be exploring a model like that, to be totally candid. And then it could be cool with the pack model walk because you could be kind of cross pairing across different client groups, but it could be a bit more stable. I don't know if I totally just threw you for
Yeah,
a loop.
that makes
Yeah,
no, that makes total sense. And I've been considering that. So thank you so much.
yeah, for sure. I definitely think that falls in the purview of like a niche that would take unique marketing, but I think there could really be something there.
Any other questions for Michelle? And thank you so much, Michelle, for helping and staying on to answer some questions for us.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to remind everyone as well, we have recorded this session today, so we will be sending out that recording along with some follow-up information, some more information about Michelle's mastermind, of course. So like I said, if you do have any questions, please do reach out to us. Michelle, thank you so much for being here and sharing all of this information with us today. I really hope that we get to work together in the future and that we'll have you back to learn more.
Awesome. I would be honored. Great to be with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a great evening. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for our next roundtable.